The Ryco X112R engine protection kit for the Mitsubishi Triton MQ and Pajero Sport QE comes complete with the Ryco Z980K series fuel water separator and RCC 351 series catch can, as well as specifically moulded hoses, brackets, fuel lines and hose clamps, all engineered for a neat install that looks like it could have come this way from the factory. As always, we recommend that the kit is installed by a qualified mechanic with the procedures shown in this instructional video. We begin with unclipping all the OEM fuel filter electrical Deutsch connectors from the factory fuel filter bracket. Disconnect both the male and female connectors and remove the OEM fuel filter housing from the fuel filter bracket by lifting it up out of its slot and then place it into the left-hand side of the bracket. Unscrew the two M8 bolts and ensure you hold on to them, as you'll be using these to fit the Ryco bracket later. Next, unscrew these M8 bolts and keep them aside, as they'll also be reused. Now, it's time to remove the OEM fuel supply hose and hose clamps. Have a rag ready, as some fuel will spill from the hose and pipe. To begin fitting the bracket, half screw in two of the OEM M8 bolts saved from the previous steps into the base mounting point. Slide in the Ryco bracket like so, and screw in the remaining bolts saved from the previous steps into the firewall mounting point. Then install the Ryco supplied M6 flange nut onto the firewall stud as shown and fully tighten all the bolts. Now, clip the first female connector onto the slot and connect the male and female connector as shown, then fasten with the supplied cable tie. Now, clip the second female connector to the slot on the Ryco bracket as shown. It's time to get to work fitting the Ryco fuel water separator. First up, select the supplied quick connectors from the kit that fit the Ryco fuel water separator head and locate the blanking plugs supplied with the fuel water separator. Install them to the fuel separator like so, ensuring they're nice and tight. We recommend holding the filter head in a vise while tightening everything up to make things just that little bit easier. Now it's time to install the fuel water assembly onto the Ryco bracket using the two black M10 bolts and washers supplied. Make sure both bolts are done up tight. We'll now prepare the two Ryco fuel hoses. Install the supplied hose clamps and elbow connectors onto each end of the fuel hose as shown, but do not tighten the hose clamps yet. Starting with the longer Ryco fuel hose, install the open end of the hose onto the vehicle's fuel tank supply pipe and tighten with the supplied hose clamp. Now, route the hose around the front of the OE fuel filter housing and along the other side of the fuel filter assembly like this. Connect the Ryco elbow connector to the Z980K inlet quick connector and listen for a click noise. With the shorter Ryco fuel hose, install the open end of the hose onto the inlet port of the fuel filter housing and tighten with the supplied hose clamp. Route the hose into the position shown and press the quick connector into position. Again, listen for the click noise. Now, locate the priming button on top of the factory fuel filter and prime the fuel system by pumping the button repeatedly. Continue pumping until it's hard to press. The priming process could take approximately 5 to 10 minutes. Once you can no longer depress the priming button, turn on the engine and inspect the hose, filter and fittings for any fuel leaks. We can proceed to the catch can installation. Remove the plastic engine cover and then remove the OEM PCV hose as shown. Next, remove the OEM bolt from behind the ABS module. Hold on to this bolt as you will screw it back into this thread in a later step. Now, locate and remove the rear airbox mounting bolt and washer. When fitting the catch can, you'll be required to maneuver the bracket around engine components like this. Ryco recommend first engaging the bracket bottom leg onto the engine stud under the brake pipes. Then proceed to line up the slot located on the driver's side wheel arch. Now, push the bracket into position on the thread behind the airbox and line up the thread on the firewall and then finally behind the ABS module. Use the supplied M6 bolt, spring washer and washer and screw down into the airbox mount. Locate the bracket foot behind the brake lines and use the M6 flange nut to secure the bracket and finally refit the OEM bolt behind the ABS module. Now you can slot the catch can onto the catch can bracket as shown and rotate to ensure clearance of the engine airbox. We can begin hose installation starting with the shorter moulded PVC hose. Install the small end onto the engine PCV port and tighten with the supplied hose clamp. You can now install the other end of the hose onto the lower inlet port of the catch can and fit the hose clamp. Install the larger end of the longer PCV hose onto the upper outlet port of the catch can and fit the hose clamp. Install the other end of the moulded PCV hose onto the air intake PCV port and fit the final hose clamp. Make sure all the Ryco supplied moulded hoses aren't squashed and are free of any kinks. To install the drain hose, remove the drain plug from the bottom of the catch can, take out the rubber seal from the plug and refit it. Insert the drain hose and secure it with the supplied clamp. Insert the hose drain tap to the other end and use the zip ties to secure the hose. To drain, pull back the red section until all oil has drained out.